what would you give as like the number one relationship advice with dealing with like a Drew Brees or a top entrepreneurial mind? And are they that different?
High performers want to be around other high performers. So if you want to attract and work with the top people in your industry, what got them to be at that level is the fact that they have a very, very high level work ethic and a model or formula that they use to get and perform at the highest level. This is my success formula. These are my non-negotiables. I make friends and have fun, relationship capital, and I gotta love what I do so I can actually work as hard as I can and not look at the clock, hope it's Friday at 4 o'clock so I can go home. I take immediate decisive action. I'm not someone who's gonna sit on the sidelines hemming and hawing going, yeah, Drew, I got this, and then do nothing. I Kaizen my way there, which means it doesn't matter how good or bad I am at something. I make a targeted effort to get 1% better every single day. I strive for remarkability, not perfection. Remarkability means that I put 100% of my best effort in the capabilities that I have today into whatever it is I'm doing. And then finally, it's change ready. I'm not going to be so hard focused on my way or the highway mindset, not be understanding and open to change. That's why I believe success is formulaic if you follow a model. And that's true of high-level athletes, that's true of high-level entrepreneurs, that's true of phenomenal parents, moms and dads that are incredible at raising kids. They have a model that works. So you've got to say, what is my model? And does this model get me a result that allows me to be at the top of my game?
This is Sparta!
Welcome back to Spartan Leadership. I'm your host, Josh Kosnick, and this is your reminder. If this is your first time here, hopefully you get the amazing impact that we intend today. If you're a repeated listener, make sure that you are sending these messages far and wide. We're bringing you high impact guests, and today is no different. With me on the line from sunny San Diego, entrepreneur, best-selling author, podcast host, expert in relationship capital, and most importantly, my favorite title for him is Girl Dad of Two. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Fenster to the show. How are we doing today, brother?
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be on your show. I'm a big fan of you. I love the mission behind the show. And so thank you so much for having me.
Well, that's awesome. So I'm going to start a little bit different because we just talked about you being a girl dad of two. So I'm a girl dad of three, and I snuck in a boy at the end due to the Cubs World Series. I give them full props for that. But what is the most valuable thing your little girls have taught you?
Oh, wow. Patience and humility.
Same here.
Yes, patience and humility. You know, I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I'm a traditional family and didn't really understand how little girls work because when I was a little boy, I didn't like little girls. I only played with boys. And, you know, I brute force and run through walls and show no emotion and just get it done and spit on the cut and no crying. And when you have girls, and then you realize that it's a whole different way of parenting and living. And they've really slowed me down and made me understand more about human emotion and understand more about empathy and understand just all of the softer, but probably more important attributes of a good human being I learned from my daughters. So, you know, as I'm sure you experienced, they turn 12 and become more mature than you pretty quickly. And so, you know, I have an 18-year-old and a 12-year-old. And so I'm definitely the least mature human in the house. And it's good. It's a challenge every day, but it's my favorite thing I get to do in this world.
That's awesome. You started a little bit faster than I did. My oldest is 12. And yes, I can completely concur with you. And for those of you that haven't had the blessing of had a little girl yet, the very moment you look into that girl's eyes and she smiles back up at you, you know exactly where the phrase daddy's little girl was coined from. Yes. Because your heart just sinks to a whole different level.
It's unbelievable how, regardless of their age, but when they're young especially, that they can get me to do anything from like the things that my friends would like, because I had kids young, so my friends weren't yet having children. They'd come over and I'd have makeup on, my nails would be painted, my toes would be painted. I'm wearing a dress on top of my clothes, looking like a princess, doing a tea party. And they look at me and go, who are you? Because that is nothing like the guy we've known for, at the time, 25 years. And I'm like, you say no to this little princess because I don't know how. It's impossible. So
Yeah, that is right. All right, let's get into stuff. I had to start with that though. It's so good.
yes.
So in your introduction, I championed your status as an expert in relationship capital. And before we get into that, or your journey as a successful entrepreneur, what to you does the phrase relationship capital? I want the audience to really get your take on that. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so a lot of people say networking. Your network is your net worth, who you know, et cetera, et cetera. But what I think we fail to articulate on and really comprehend and understand is every relationship of two human beings, there's an unspoken ledger. Whether it's your parents, your children, your friends, your coworkers, a stranger, an acquaintance. And that ledger is a balance, basically just like a bank account, which is, do you have more cash in the bank or are you broke? And it's true in a relationship. Have you made deposits into the relationship account? And so relationship capital is the currency you have with all the human beings that you come in contact with, regardless if it's for business or personal. And the currency that is used is, if I call you at 2 a.m, will you get out of bed and come pick me up if my car breaks down? If I call you and ask you for a restaurant recommendation in your city, will you take the time to give it to me? If I call you, sending me straight to voicemail. Are you going to help me out if you know anything that I need, or vice versa? Am I going to help you out? And so it's another way to quantify how good of a relationship you have with everybody in your world. And when you start to think about it, as unauthentic as it feels or disingenuous as it feels to say bank account, it's just easier to look at objectively and to quantify that says, I look at my bank account. If I have cash in there, I have some wealth. If I have zero or I have negative balance, then I'm broke. It's true in relationships. Like, a lot of people, but how well do you know them and how strong is the bond? Do you have relationship capital with them where I could call you, Josh, and you could get on a plane right now and fly to me because I need something? Like, would you do that for me? Yes or no? Probably not, because we don't have that kind of relationship yet. But that just means I don't have enough relationship capital built up. But if I was your childhood best friend and I'd been through the trenches with you and bent over backwards together and been through all of life's up and downs, if I called you, you would literally walk out of this show right now in the middle of it, hop on an airplane and come help me out because I had that relationship capital with you. So It's just an easier way to start to look at relationships and say, okay, who do I know and how well do I know them? And am I doing the things today that is generating more and creating more relationship capital with these people so you become wealthy in relationships, whether or not you ever need to call in a favor or ask for help? Because what also happens when you have a lot of relationship capital built up is people start to help you without you even asking, simply because they like you, they love you, they want to support you, and they think of you in such a high light, just like your parents would or you would for your kids, etc. It's like, I don't need my kid to ask me to be their champion. I love them. So every opportunity in the world I see that I can add some positive influence in their life, I'm going to do it because they have unlimited relationship capital with me. So now in business, especially as entrepreneurs, this is where we fail to realize that this is that secret unspoken currency that really allows a lot of successful entrepreneurs and businesses to amplify and take an elevator to the top without needing the necessary skills and time in business and all the grit and the 100-hour work weeks and all those other things you are willing to do. This is that extra bit that really can add a lot of zeros to your bank account, can really build your business. And, I'm speaking more entrepreneurial now, but it applies even if you're not an entrepreneur. It applies if you're working for a company. Are you well liked in the office? Does everyone think of you for the next promotion and that fast track to the top and all of those things? Because nepotism and cronyism is real, right? People get ahead because of who they know. We all know that person that's like, oh, I got passed on the job because so-and-so's brother or best friend got it, even though I'm more qualified than them. And you come to realize qualifications is not the first way you get the opportunity. It's who you know. Then it's are you qualified? And a lot of times who you know will trump the qualifications of another. So that's why it's so important and why I've spent a lot of my career really focusing and analyzing and understanding how to create, nurture, and develop relationship capital, and then how to help other people do the same thing.
No, it's so good. The one thing I want to key on I know you talked about the example of a best friend for 25 years, you'd walk right out. Absolutely. But it's not always just time a relationship of with people either, or the length of it. It's about the depth of it. There's been some people that I've developed relationships with in the last 6 months, last 12 months, that we've gone deep real fast. And they've done a lot for me, and I've done a lot for them. And again, so I know you know this. I just want to make sure that someone didn't pick out Jeff's example there and be like, oh, it's only that person 25 years. No, you can go deep fast, especially as a mature adults. As you get more and more mature, you skip a lot of the bullshit, at least in the circles that I know you and I are both in. There's far less bullshit, and it's more and more about the quality and the depth of how far we can go in conversation and how much we can connect. So I just want to make sure we clarified that real quick, because I didn't want them to take that one example out of context and think that's the only way to go deep is the length of a relationship.
Well said. Yeah. The point of that was just to share that's how important that was the point, was you can have them for life, or you can develop them now, but you do that through relationship capital, because time is not something I can manufacture. I can't manufacture knowing you for the last 35 years, but I can go deep with you today. And in 12 months, I can create enough relationship capital with you where you would walk out this door right now to come help me, because we've gone that deep. So thank you for clarifying, because that was what I was trying to get across.
Yep. And the other thing I want to make sure they don't do is try and measure. Don't measure it. And so actually someone asked me on a podcast the other day, what was my best marriage advice? And I said this, and I think it applies to relationships. I said 100-0. And he goes, what do you mean? I said 100% expecting 0 in return. Yes. And she gives me the same thing. If we're going to measure a relationship and, I gave 55% this week and she gave 45% this week, we're always going to live in some sort of deficit, one way or the other. And then all of a sudden our relationship grows apart because we're measuring each other's efforts. And so same thing in your relationships out there. Now, if it gets way out of balance where you've just continually poured into someone and they've given you nothing in return, you're going to get that feeling and you're going to cut that off. But if you truly go 100-0 towards your relationships, be it marriage, your children, or your business relationships, you're going to crush it.
Well, especially because what starts to happen is early on in the journey of building relationship capital, I think people carry a balance in their head and they go, I do all this for Jeff, but he doesn't do anything for me. And it's a scarcity mindset. And what it's going to create then is, yes, I've made too many withdrawals. So that's on my side of the ledger, which means I'm not really doing what I should be doing. But if you don't do those things and you just do the 100-0 and you just say, how can I lead with value? How can I continue to make deposits? It's like I say to anyone who wants to be a millionaire. If you have millions of dollars in the bank, are you going to be upset that you have millions of dollars in the bank and you haven't spent it? You don't have to spend it, right? Having it is the value. And so on your side of the ledger, regardless if I have done anything to create the same reciprocity, if all you've done is add value to my life and you have relationship capital with me, which means you should be able to call me on a whim and leverage and take advantage and make a withdrawal. You've earned the right to. I haven't. So I probably, if I call you, like, oh God, Jeff again, no way. So it just means I don't have the relationship capital back. You're wealthy and I'm living paycheck to paycheck broke in this relationship, which hurts me in the long run. And so my advice is, you're right, don't carry a balance. Just keep making as many deposits with as many people as you can, because it's fascinating when you start to look back in time and realize, oh my gosh, I didn't expect that person to do that. I didn't expect that opportunity to fall on my lap. And look what starts to happen. It compounds. It's like that 1 penny becomes 2 pennies, becomes 4 pennies, becomes 8 pennies, becomes 16 pennies, becomes 32 pennies, becomes 64 pennies. And you're like, it's still 64 cents. Play the exercise another 20 times and look what the number starts to become. And before long, 5 years, 10 years, you look back and you go, holy smokes, I have incredible relationships with incredibly deep, amazing human beings all over the world in all walks of life. I don't have to ask for favors because people are creating opportunities in favor for me, because I help as many people as I can, as often as I can, without caring what's in it for me. And I also don't need anything. And when I say that, everyone needs something. And there are times I do make withdrawals, but I don't need it when I meet you and we're doing something. I don't need it when I meet somebody. I don't immediately quantify them and say, what can this person do to help me? I don't care. I know the way the world works because I've been doing this for so long. And so that's why I'm really trying to help people reframe their approach and their mindset on this topic and say, regardless if you're in sales, regardless if you understand how I can help you, everybody is somebody's mother, brother, sister, aunt, cousin, friend, neighbor, acquaintance, coworker, which means everybody is 1 or 2 people away from somebody who knows somebody who can help you and change the trajectory of your entire life. It's one relationship can do that. And so don't cut it off, and don't prevent yourself from accomplishing it because you may not see how all the dots fit. The analogy is you plant a seed, like a tree or a rose or a flower, and you plant it via seed in the ground and you water it. Well, it doesn't go up first, it goes down first. And you build that depth and that foundation of roots. And a lot of people rip the plant up because they haven't seen it sprout in 2, 3, 4 weeks. But what they fail to realize is it actually was building this incredibly extensive root system. And it was just about to break the surface, and you were going to have this strong, amazing plant. And it's true in business, it's true in relationships. Just keep doing it without caring what the balance is. 100-0. And I love how you said that. That's exactly it. Like, keep that in the forefront. Say yes to as many things as you can. Help as many people as you can. And I assure you, it comes back 10x every time.
And I can verify that as well. The one thing that came to mind for me there is, do you find value in here? Well, let me set up the scenario. Recently, I've given so much to so many people, and there's been a few people that have come back and said, how can I help you? You've helped me so much in the last hour, the last month, whatever it's been. How can I help you? And I was like, I got stumped a couple times. And so I actually had to think about it some more, because I know that it gives them juice to be able to repay what I've given them. So I've actually had to think about what could I ask for, not in like a selfish way, but more in a selfless way, to give it back to them so they feel valuable to me as well. So do you think it's valuable to have an idea of what someone could help you with? Now, I know everyone has their different specialties, but do you have an answer for that?
I mean, yes, I have a canned go-to, because like you, I don't like to use my withdrawals for trivial things and just on the fly. So I don't like to ask favors unless it's truly something that is going to be meaningful enough to me to warrant the ask. And I'm careful with it because I want to cherish them. I mean, these are your parachutes in life, or these are your springboards in life. And so my answer is normally like, I'll get off stage and maybe I spoke on relationship capital, and so they were paying attention. So they'll come and want to help me, and I'll like, take action on what I said today. That helps me actually take the advice that I've used and was taught and have learned over the last 30 years, apply it. Because you doing the same thing and creating and building the relationship capital and having an abundance in your life and being successful actually helps me the most, because I want everyone to be wealthy in relationships, in health, and in finances, because the more people that are happy, wealthy, and healthy, they're going to create incredible companies that I'm going to get to utilize. They're going to change the world. They're going to educate our youth. They're going to do all the fun things that I'm not touching. I just am going to be a consumer of, or a recipient of. And so my canned answer is always take some of the advice or whatever I just spoke on. If it's not on a stage, or it's just somebody who reaches out and says, hey, I just want to help you, honestly, I don't have a good answer. I say, listen, I really appreciate it. I don't need anything, thankfully. I'm in a really good position in life where I'm very grateful and happy, and really I want to help more people. That's really what fills me up at this stage. So I dance and I dodge.
Yeah.
And it's because I don't want to make the withdrawals. I'm very careful about it. I don't ask a lot of favors, but when I do, it's because I really want something or need something. And so I want to be specific and have a lot of intention behind that, instead of being that squeaky wheel that's always saying, hey, can you help me do this? And me. I know what that gets you. It gets you 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And when it's, how can I help? How can I help? Lead with value, be more interesting, and be more interested in the person you're talking to than interesting about yourself. All of a sudden, it's like, I don't need anything because things just fall in my lap and I get Fenster luck.
Yep. No, that's a really good answer. No canned answers, but be specific when you do ask. And then, of course, continue to pay it forward. That's some really good stuff. I'm glad we went there. So I think the relationship capital thing will be a thread throughout our conversation. But before we continue on, I want to make sure everyone really understands where your passion for your entrepreneurial journey started and how that ignited your entrepreneurial mindset. So give us kind of the origin story, if you will.
Sure. Never said the word entrepreneur in my life. Never thought of being a business owner. Dad, doctor, mom, teacher. Grew up playing sports, wanted to be a professional athlete. I'll save you guys the cliffhanger. Didn't work out. Wasn't good enough. So I went to law school to be a sports agent and had a job lined up with Lee Steinberg Sports Agency, the real life Jerry Maguire, who the movie was made after. And that was how I was going to stay connected with my passion, sports. Third year of law school, I was 24 years old. well, 23 years old, excuse me, at the time, and had a daughter. And it's amazing how things changed. It was 2007, or excuse me, it was 2005 at the time, but 2006, 2007 was when I started my first company. And back then there was no Zoom, there was no smartphones. So physically you had to travel the world to be a sports agent. I had to be at the beck and call of the athletes, and I wasn't going to be a present dad. I was never going to be home, and my family was going to take a back seat. And a lot of the agents that I knew were divorced or separated or had terrible familial relationships. And I didn't want that. And so graduated law school, quit my job as a sports agent, and had no idea what I was going to do, but had 6 figures in law school loans, a kid and a fiance, and got a job selling payroll for a company called ADP, which is a global payroll and HR company. And fun fact, I utilized relationship capital in my first 6 months there, was the #1 sales rep in the country. We had President's Club, over 2,500 sales reps, and I figured out how to sell really quickly utilizing solution-based selling and relationships. And thought, hey, this was going to be my career. I'll work at ADP. I'm making 6 figures. I just bought a house. We moved our little family into it. I was golfing twice a week. My work-life balance was fantastic. No travel outside of my territory, which was in San Diego, and dream come true. And then I went to my boss in January of 2007, and I said, I had signed a contract for $38,000 base pay plus commission. And I had agreed in my contract that if I sold a certain number, I would get 54,000 base. I'd get a $17,000 base increase. So I went in January and I said, her name was Ashley. I said, Ashley, when do I get my raise? And she said, you get it at the end of the fiscal year, which is in June. And so the first, starting July, you'll get your new contract, you'll get your new salary. I'm like, wait, that's 6.5 months from now. I need the money now. I have bills, I have things I have to cover. And she's like, sorry, Jeff, like these are annual goals. And I'm like, well, I did it already. And she goes, yeah, but you're an outlier. Most people take the full year or pretty close to it. And then we resurf, everything gets recycled at the new fiscal. And I just remember feeling this tidal wave of emotion, just like a prisoner, like, oh my gosh, no matter what I do, like I can't do better than being #1, right? So I'm like at the top. If I can't get them to give me my raise now, then I'm always going to be waiting for the end of June. And my life is going to revolve around this calendar that says, good job, Jeff, wait till June and you'll get it in July. And I went home and I was just disheveled. And I remember telling my fiance, like, I think I'm going to quit. And she said, really, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I could sell this thing. What if I just start my own payroll company? Like, how hard can this be? And she was like, you sure you want to do that? And I'm like, no, but I don't want to do this. And I'm sure they're going to give it to me. So maybe I'll just threaten to quit. And so I went in and I threatened to quit and tried to be the good sales rep I was. And Ashley went upstream to the manager and then the next manager and up, and came back and said, sorry, Jeff, like there's literally nothing we can do. If you want to quit, you can quit. But they were now calling my bluff, I think. So I went home and I said, honey, I'm going to quit tomorrow. We're going to sell the house. We're going to move in with my parents, and I'm going to start my own payroll company because I can't live like this. Like, I don't want to be in this environment. And she said, okay. And I went to my dad and I'm like, Dad, do you care if me and my fiance and daughter move in? And he gave me this long discussion that I'll never forget. And he said, Jeff, you keep in mind, he was pissed already that I stopped. I didn't utilize my law degree. He's pissed already that I quit the sports agency and didn't then go be a lawyer. And he's like, Jeff, you're being reckless. Like, you're a dad. You don't have the privilege to chase dreams anymore. Like, you've got a 6-figure job. You're paying your bills. You got a house. Like, what are you doing? No, like, of course you can move in if you have to, but don't quit. Like, you're being reckless. Like, I just remember him just yelling at me, like truly like pissed. And I looked at the coin that he was saying, and I saw it a different way. I said, Dad, I hear what you're saying, but what you're telling me is to settle because I have children. And what you're also telling me is I'm going to teach my kids to do the same thing, because kids don't listen to the words you say. They follow your actions, right? Parents who smoke, their kids are more likely to smoke. Parents who drink, their kids are more likely to drink. Parents who go to college, their kids are more likely to go to college. It's what you do that they watch and observe from, and not what you say. And I don't know why those all came to me in that moment, but I said, Dad, I disagree with you. I think I have an obligation to show my daughter that I'm not going to settle, and I'm not going to put my dreams away because I have responsibilities. Life is life, and I need to show her to go after everything she wants with everything, and the rest will work itself out. So if I have your blessing, I'm moving in. And he said, well, Jeff, of course you always have a place to stay. So sold the house, quit the job, moved in with my parents, and I started my first payroll company out of my mom's kitchen called iChecks, simply because I was pissed at ADP over $17,000.
Man, that is so good. We have so many parallels in our story. So many. I'll say most of the audience knows, and this topic's about you today, but real briefly, I was a sales manager at Best Buy after I dropped out of school, which I went to school to continue my football career, and that was about it. And they told me no for a raise as I was running a top 3 store in the country. And I knew others that were paid more than I was just because they were older than me. And I was whooping their ass month in and month out. They told me no, came in, told them I was out. I was going to give them 2 months to get them through the holiday season. Next day they said, well, you can leave now. So that started me off in the financial advisory career. So, man, it's really cool stuff. So now you got a budding empire. And what do you think for those that have started out, the lumps that you had taken, if there was a top 2 that you could distill it down to, because we got a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to this show and you've gone through multiple iterations of this thing. So I know this is a hard question, but it just came to mind for these new entrepreneurs, the top 2 things you wish you could have done over when you were starting that would help save a ton of pain.
Yeah. So my first couple of companies, well, I learned this mostly in my first company, the payroll and HR company, which we scaled and sold 4 years later. I had to lose the ego. That was the biggest wall I kept running into. Was I had this growing company and I kept hiring great people to come join the firm. You know, we were a payroll company. We ended up turning it into an HRIS platform because the smartphone got created, apps were there, and we digitized the payroll and human resource ecosystem. Employee self-service portals, and apply online, look at your W-2s, like all the things that you take for granted now, we helped create, and that was what our company did. I didn't know how to do any of this stuff. So I was hiring a CTO, HR managers, technically savvy coders, and all these people that were so much more talented in all these areas than I am. And they all kept quitting. And I kept blaming them. Like, what is wrong with these people? Don't they understand the opportunity? Like, pointing the finger. And I'll never forget it. It was 2009, end of 2009. I'm brushing my teeth. My CTO, my third CTO, had quit. And gosh, like every time they quit, it's like, oh my God, we got to start over. We got to find them. We got to train them. It sets us back. And I'm like, what is wrong? Like, I'm again venting to the mirror in my head, looking at myself, brushing my teeth. And finally I was like, what is the common denominator of all these people quitting? And I'm looking at myself. And I was like, uh-oh, it's me. I'm the problem. And I'm like, what am I doing that is making all these people quit? And then I came to really think about it. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing. I'm insecure. I have this feeling that I have to be the person who came up with the idea. I have to be the person that gets all the credit. I have to shine so bright because I'm the founder CEO and I'm this young kid and I feel this imposter syndrome. And I want to impress everybody in the company and make them realize why I'm the CEO and the founder and not because I'm just some young guy. And they're all older than me. You know, this is an older industry. Most people at that time were in their mid 30s to early 50s and I was 25. Young looking 25. And so I just had a lot of insecurity. And so then I was like, you know what? Instead of trying to be the smartest guy in every room I walk into, I'm going to pivot. I'm going to try being the dumbest guy in the room. I'm going to let everyone else get the credit. I'm going to let them join our team. I'm hiring them because they're great. I'm going to let them be great. And to use a sports analogy, you don't bring a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan on your team and tell them how to play basketball. You give them the ball and get out of their way. And so I'm going to start to do that, you know, because it's not working this way. So let's try the opposite. And the second I did that, my company's revenue 3x that next 12 months. We went from slow growth, about 6 or 7% annual growth year over year, to 3 times growth that next 12 months, and then 5 times the year after that, and got us to an exit. And I came to the conclusion that lose the ego and allow intelligent, great people to shine. And all of a sudden you get the collection of the power of the team, and a great team will beat a collection of individuals or talent any day. And I knew that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Well, great teams beat talent when talent gets in the way. So yes, I switched that mindset. So that would be my first one is
look at before you go to number two, I want to repeat one of my favorite questions in the world, and you hit on it so well. What part of the problem is me? Mm-hmm. It's one of the wisest questions you can ask yourself, because it doesn't matter if it's 1% or 99%. You are, if you're in a relationship or if you're in a situation, you are part of the problem. And you uncovered that you were the common denominator in all of those things. And again, it didn't matter the percentage, but you played a role. So losing that ego and going to try and be the dumbest person in the room and getting really smart people around you, led you to a successful exit. Had you not taken that path, the business in all likelihood would have failed.
Agreed. And I also would never have been, or would have kept trudging along, right? Because through grit, you can keep things floating. And people who are business owners today who've had a plateauing company for 5-10 years probably know what I'm talking about. They're listening, where it's like, yeah, my company doesn't really grow. We fight just to stay even. And that's just because you're not allowing smart people to inject their DNA. And because I use vertical integration, I had started a recruiting company, and I use solution-based selling. I'm not a transactional salesperson. I sell you for life, and I want to build relationships clearly from our beginning. And one of the things I thought when I started the recruiting company was people would change careers for more money. It's just not the reason people change careers. It's one of the reasons, but it's not the main reason. And the main reason is feeling fulfilled and feeling part of the team. And if you really want rock stars on your team, not just entry level who will come in for the job and want to learn on the job, but the people who have the expertise that can take your business to the next level, you've got to let them be brilliant. You've got to let them demonstrate why they are excellent at what they do. You can't tell them how to do their job. You need to give them the blank canvas and provide them the resources and tools they need to execute, because that's why you hired them. And the last thing you want to do is get in their way. And I was getting in their way, not consciously realizing it, but it was my insecurities. And so the second I got out of their way and said, here, what resources do you need and how can I support you? It was like, oh my gosh, look how great we get. And because I have such good relationship capital, I can get people to come work with me, but keeping them was the next part. And that's when okay, good lesson to learn early. And it's changed the financial trajectory of my entire life. And I'm fortunate and grateful that I had that mirror moment. And again, I would say the maturity in that moment to not continue to just point the finger and blame, shame others, and realize, like, hey, like you said, what part of the problem was me? And I was a huge part of that problem.
Oh, it's so good. Well, all right, number two. What was number two for you?
Yeah, so number one was that. And then number two is failing to realize why most businesses fail. I jump from industry to industry. I think experience is one of the most overrated prerequisites to starting and running a company. And, I talk about it with restaurants all the time, because the famous cliche is 9 out of 10 restaurants fail. Yeah. Do you know why 9 out of 10 restaurants fails? Because they're started by chefs. And what that means is they fail to realize that running a business is different from what you do inside the business. Being a restaurateur and having a restaurant, yes, cooking is what you do, just like a dentist fixes your teeth and a painter paints your house and an accountant does your taxes. But the business side of it, the behind the scenes, running the business, recruiting talent, bringing in customers, the marketing, the logistics, the supply chain, the SOPs, the raising capital or dealing with your P&Ls and your banking, all of those things are pretty similar across every single business you do. So if you started a business or you're an entrepreneur and you're running a company because you're an expert in what you do, I need you to really realize that you have to either bring somebody in who can run the business, or you have to work on those skills. And don't for a second think because you're the best chef in the world, you can run a profitable, successful restaurant chain. We all know those great restaurants that went out of business. We're like, man, the food was so good. What happened? They didn't know how to run a business. And so for me, it was like, I came to the conclusion that I'm really good at running the business. So I can bring in chefs, I can bring in dentists, I can bring in accountants, I can bring in construction teams. I need to surround myself with the experts in the field because I'm good at the underlying business. So you have to identify, am I the tactician who's good at what I do, or am I the business person and I need to surround myself with more talent in what we do? Very few people are great at both. If you are, congratulations. Keep doing that and keep killing it. But most entrepreneurs aren't. And so that's why they struggle, because they're one or the other. And so they have to solve the problem. And so they got to recognize which one, lean into their strengths and surround themselves and bring talent in to fill the gaps.
Yeah. If you think you're both, I'm going to go back to Jeff's pain point number one, and perhaps you need to have that mirror moment. And when he says most, like 99.9% are not. So right. Thinking you're the 0.1% that is, you may need to go back to point number one and learn that humility piece. Oh, it's so good, brother. All right. So for those, for the last 5 to 10 minutes is like a masterclass in entrepreneurship right there. So let's go back to relationships real quick, because many may not know this that aren't following you yet. And by the way, everyone should be following Jeff at this point. You're working with some of the top athletes in the world, and then also some of the top entrepreneurs in the world. For those that aspire to continue leveling themselves up in these relationships, What would you give as like the number one relationship advice with dealing with like a Drew Brees or a top entrepreneurial mind? And are they that different?
Yes. Well, they're similar in the sense that like attracts like, and high performers want to be around other high performers. So if you want to attract and work with the top people in your industry, sports world, A-list entertainers, whatever it is, keep in mind what got them to be at that level is the fact that they have a very, very high level work ethic and a model or formula that they use to get and perform at the highest level, right? They don't do mediocrity. They don't just do their minimum and check the box at done. They check the box when they can't do it any better. And that mindset means that if you want to work with them and you want them to want to work with you, you've got to hold yourself accountable to that same standard in everything you do. You know, in my studio, everyone has to sign. In my control room, we have a wall, and everyone signs and leaves a message for everyone else. And to quote Drew Brees in there, how you do anything is how you do everything. And so if you want to work with him, he's going to look at you and say, do I want to go to war with this person? Do I want to get on the battlefield and compete? And is this person bringing us up or holding us back? And so you've got to start to look at yourself and say, okay, what is my formula every day? What is my model for how I approach everything I do? And is it to perform at the highest level? And if the answer is no, that's okay. You don't have to want the same things I may want or someone else may want, but I'm just going to share with you, you will not get to work with and alongside and partner with these types of individuals because they got there because of their work ethic and their formula and holding themselves accountable to the highest degree. So Drew won a Super Bowl, right? He doesn't want to do business mediocre, like at a mediocre level. He wants to win the Super Bowl in business with his family, with his personal brand, with who he does business with. And so he needs to know and feel and have confidence that, hey, if I do business with Jeff, he's not going to be the one holding us back. He's actually going to, when I give him the ball, I have confidence that he's going to go score the touchdown too. And that's who I want to work with. And so it's that self-reflection, say, okay, what is my model? I have my core values or my success formula that I use to ensure that I'm successful at everything I do. And it works really well for me. And it's repeatable. And so you either need to find yours or steal mine and make it your own. I don't care, but you got to come up with it. And once you have it, you need to follow it.
Yeah, it's so good. My dad used to tell me that and has preached that to me my whole life. How you do one thing is how you do everything. Yes. And so speaking of another San Diego guy, you probably know this one as well, Marshall Faulk. Yep. He was golfing with one of my good friends and the member guest down in Cabo. And this was a year or two ago. Anyhow, they get matched up. They had never met each other. And this is a good friend and neighbor of mine. And he said two things to him before he started. He says, Ben, he goes, I'm going to ride by myself today. Take no offense to that. And if I ever get mad, it's not at you. It's at me. He is such a dang competitor that he just wants to win. So it's like he's on the golf course now. And by the way, for those that don't know, Marshall Faulk's a beast in business now as well, just like he was on the football field. But it was just funny. They went on to win, the member guest. Tiger Woods shows up there in the final. Like, this was a big deal. And he's like, anyhow, I could go on about that story, but it just reminded me you were talking about Drew and then the San Diego connection, that story popped to mind because Marshall, much like Drew, still that competitive streak, no matter what, that doesn't leave them, and they want to be the best.
Yeah, and it's not just athletes. I mean, the truth is, like, the Gary Vaynerchuk's, the Dan Fleischman's, the Marcus Lemonis's, the Mark Cuban's. This is what you're doing, right? So you have to make a decision. Like, what do you want your legacy to be? If you're not in sports, I use sports because that's my passion, but I think of it as everybody who is a pro athlete wants to make it to the Hall of Fame. I want my career to be I want to make it to the Hall of Fame in my career as a business individual, right? And as a dad. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to leave it all on the field, no pun intended. And in order to do that, I have to have a model that works, and if it's okay, I'd love to share my model really quickly because I think it can add some value to your audience, but it's like, this is my success formula and I use it every single business, every single day. These are my non-negotiables. I make friends and have fun. That's my rule number one. Relationship capital, and I got to love what I do so I can actually work as hard as I can and not look at the clock and hope it's Friday at 4:00 so I can go home. That's the draw of balance, but make friends and have fun. I take immediate decisive action. I'm not someone who's going to sit on the sidelines hemming and hawing and going, yeah, Drew, I got this, and then do nothing, right? I take immediate decisive action. Number three, I Kaizen my way there, which means it doesn't matter how good or bad I am at something. I make a targeted effort to get 1% better every single day. So you can count on me to improve every day. I might not be where you want me today, but you know he's going to keep working until he gets there. Number 4, I strive for remarkability, not perfection. Remarkability means that I put 100% of my best effort and the capabilities I have today into whatever it is I'm doing. That's all you can ask me to do. That's all I can do. If the answer is yes, I'm remarkable at it and I'm going to continue to improve. And like bowling, professional bowlers, they sometimes bowl a perfect game of 300. They don't do it every single time. So you can hit perfect on the way towards remarkability. And then finally, it's change ready. I'm not going to be so hard focused on my way or the highway mindset and not be understanding and open to change. So if the world says it's time to change, it's time to pivot, it's time to adapt, I will pivot, adapt, change. I will go back to number 1 and I'll make friends and have fun to figure out how I need to get in that thing, take immediate decisive action, Kaizen my way to get there and be remarkable every single day. And by doing those things, Drew knows he doesn't know what decision I'm going to make tomorrow in business, but he knows how Jeff's going to approach it. Whatever circumstance comes, he can bet and have confidence that when I have the ball and it's my turn to make a call for us, he knows exactly how I'm going to approach it. And he's comfortable with that approach because that's going to get us good results over time. And that has allowed me to be successful again and again and again. And that's why I believe success is formulaic if you follow a model. And that's true of high-level athletes. That's true of high-level entrepreneurs. That's true of phenomenal parents, moms and dads that are incredible at raising kids. They have a model that works. So you've got to say, what is my model? And does this model get me a result that allows me to be at the top of my game? And if the answer is yes, and you mirror that with the intention behind relationship capital, when those opportunities come with those influential individuals or the people you want to meet and work with in your industry, they're going to want to work with you because you're showing them with your work ethic, your track record, everyone who knows you and says, yeah, my companies grow, my companies succeed, I attract great people, I do these things. You're dependable, you're reliable, everyone understands it. And that is really how I've been able to curate and work with some of the amazing humans I get to work with, not just the famous people, but also people that don't have big personal brands, but are incredibly talented, amazing individuals that I get to take on the world with and do life with and do business with.
That's so great. So for everyone that, I want you to go back and listen to the last few minutes because what Jeff just gave you is a model for his day that's helped him succeed. And he also asked the question in there, what does it take for you to succeed in your day, and question your model? And I think that's why, morning routines are getting so much more buzz as of the last few years. But the morning routine in and of itself isn't enough if you don't have a model for the rest of your day. Yes, it sets your mind up for war, or yes, it sets your day up for success. But unless you have a model like Jeff just said for himself, the rest of your day is going to go by happenstance, not by intention. Mm-hmm. So it's really utilizing a model and figuring out what that is so that you run the day and the day doesn't run you. And if you can't spit it off like Jeff just did, you don't have a model.
And don't confuse productivity and activity, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they think they're busy, they're working really hard. But remember, you can run really hard and really long in place. And so are you being productive? And so don't confuse productivity and activity. You may be doing a lot of things because you feel like you're doing stuff to move your business ahead, but are you being productive? What is the target? Yeah. How are you going to get 1% better today? Can you clearly define that for the moment, like today? What are you doing to improve from yesterday? If you don't know the answer, I can tell you, you're probably running in place and you're plateauing. Like you should say, okay, yesterday we sold 2,906 acai bowls. Today, I want to sell 2,907. Can we get one more bowl sold today? Yes or no? Well, that's our goal. What do we need to do that? Now everyone's clear on the goal, and now everyone's thinking, okay, how do we get one more from yesterday? That's not a crazy goal, but if I do that all year, the number on December 31st compared to January 1st is a big difference. And if I had said that goal on January 2nd, it's like, that's not possible, Jeff. Like, we don't know. Okay. Forget when, right? We'll get there. Yep. What do you do today to get 1% better? If you're not working out and you want to get healthy, what are you doing today to get a little bit healthier? Can you put on your gym clothes and watch Netflix today? Great. Because yesterday you didn't even put on your gym clothes. Do that today. Tomorrow, can you put on your gym clothes and walk or run to the mailbox? Great. Do that. Because yesterday you just sat and watched Netflix. And every day, just get a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better. And then it's a matter of when, not if, you're in shape, you're making more money, you're curating relationships. Like if you're an introvert and you're like, I'm not comfortable talking to people, can you have one conversation with one stranger in one coffee shop, restaurant, airport, mall, office, where you simply look at somebody and go, hey, how are you? How's your day? Can you just do that once today? Okay, great. Tomorrow, ask one more follow-up. That's a really nice watch. Where did you get it? Or I love that sweater. What brand is that? Are those shoes comfortable? That's all. And then 6 months from now, you're going to be talking to 10 people. And 2 years from now, you're going to be talking to everybody. And so that's the thing about how you start to scale, scale success and scale good decision making, to where the answer to Drew's statement, how you do anything is how you do everything. I do everything with the intention to get better. I'm not embarrassed if I suck at it today, because I'm going to Kaizen and I'm okay. You might be way better at it than me today. That's awesome. Congratulations. I'm not competing with you. I'm competing with the me of yesterday. And guess what? I kick his ass every day.
Yes, that is great. So he's mentioned Kaizen a few times. For those of you who aren't familiar, Kaizen, it's a Japanese term for continuous improvement. So I love that he brought that up, but not everyone may have been familiar with it. So I want to make sure we drew that out, because you've mentioned it a few times. All right. So I know that you also preach on the power behind authentic networking. We got to teach you got to teach us a little bit behind relationship capital, some of that, but what is authentic networking in the entrepreneurial space? Like what trends are you seeing in the authenticity of relationships as the world around us continues to evolve?
Yeah. I think people are making this mistake of feeling like by building my tribe, I have to be polarizing.
Oh yeah.
I see this trend today, and I think it's dangerous, and I don't like it. You are entitled to view politics how you view politics, religion how you view religion. Pick your polarizing topic, if you will. I don't care. I want to take everyone back to what Michael Jordan said back in the late 80s, early 90s, when he was pushing Nike shoes. He was a Democrat at the time, and he said Republicans buy shoes too. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to make money, everyone in America has a wallet. And why would you want to cut down the potential people who would shop at your venue because you feel the need to express your political, religious, pick your view and make it so dogmatic and so front and center? My views are mine. And I can think about, Trump or Biden, whatever I want to think about. I can think about global warming, however I want to think about it. I can think about abortion, however I want to think about it. We're Americans. And in America, freedom is freedom. So I don't need to share my views with you, because you and me aren't the ones making the calls. I'm selling you acai bowls or construction services or speaking on your stage and teaching you about how to make more money in entrepreneurship. That's what I do. I'm not a politician, right? I don't, that's not my career, and neither are you. So why do I want to either invite you into my community because we agree, or piss you off because we disagree, when you fail to realize, as polarizing as we are right now, it's really about 4 or 5% of the issues that we are this divided. 95%, we are all together. Yes. So I'd rather focus on the 95% that we're together on, do fun things, build more wealth, create a more unified country and community, and invite everybody, whether you like me or don't, for those other views. You don't know my views on those because I don't share them. You won't see me talk politics, religion, or any of these things on my social platforms, because it doesn't help me in my business and life. I'm not convincing somebody who's like, I completely disagree with Jeff, but because he said it, I'm changing my views. It just doesn't happen, right? So what are we trying to accomplish except continuously bickering and fighting like we're on the schoolyard playground, instead of saying, look, you and me may differ in politics. I may see what you say on it, and I might think completely opposite. But you know what? You eat acai bowls? Let's talk about that, right? You need financial services and financial planning and build wealth. Let's talk to you about that, right? If I need construction, let's talk about that. If we need to talk about relationships, let's talk about those things, because the other stuff doesn't help me, right? And I just don't understand why in today's world right now, everyone is running to draw a hard line in the sand and say, I'm this or I'm that. Stop that. We're Americans, right? We should all be together on this. And the things we disagree on, cool, but they're not front and center. Neither of us are decision makers on those topics, unless you are working in, Washington, D.C. or your local state government, in which case you need to be expressing your views, and I can tell you agree or disagree, but most of us aren't. And so from authentic side, I'd like to see everybody remember that there's a pie, and everybody that you piss off because you want to piss them off because they differ on some topic than you've now lost out lifetime value of that money into your bank. And so unless you're Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or making so much money that you just don't give a shit, stop doing that. I just don't understand it.
It's cause and divide, and you're falling into the same trap that media falls into, which is drawing eyeballs or trying to get eyeballs, but not necessarily a good viewership or anything. You're getting people that'll hate you or people that love you, but it's all about shock jock TV, if you will. Whereas like when I talk about politics, I'm trying to facilitate any way that we can show people how to have a conversation. So when I talk politics, that's the only way I go about it, is to make sure that we can have difficult conversations without being disrespectful to people, instead of being the shock jock that just has an opinion just to get views. So I love that. And this may be your answer to this question, but I'll see if you have a different one, because I end each show with this question. What's an unpopular belief that you hold to be true that you think most others would disagree with you on? So you may have just answered it.
I may have just said it. What's an unpopular belief that I have? An unpopular belief I have is that every single human being can be extraordinary. And it doesn't matter where you live, what you came from, your intellect, your skill sets. I'm an ordinary guy, and I believe everybody can do the extra stuff to get extraordinary results. It's an unpopular belief because everyone wants to play, not everyone, let me speak more clearly. A large portion of humans feel comfortable saying that they're not where they are because, and having some justification instead of realizing that it's time to look in the mirror. You are the effect of every action that you take every single day. So if you don't have the wealth you want, the health you want, the relationships you want, I'm not here to sugarcoat it and make you feel good about those decisions. It's time to change your behavior. It's on you. I'm on a mission to help more people figure out the formula that they can start implementing. But you can lead a horse to water. You have to drink. So if you're not going to make the effort, take the action, and be consistent in your daily pursuit of your potential, then guess what? You're the reason you're not where you want to be. It's not because of your race, your religion, where you grew up, your parents' upbringing, you're 6'5" or you're 5'5". It doesn't matter. It's really about, there's a quote that I saw, and I might butcher a little bit, but it was, there's somebody in the world who had the exact same hand as you did and is winning with it. And so when you realize that, it's like, okay, get up tomorrow, get 1% better, start building the life that you want. It's yours. You live with it. I don't. You don't live with mine. And take personal accountability for that fact. It's a little unpopular until you around certain high achievers. People who are stuck in mediocrity tend to not like to hear that. They want to hear that there's some good reason why, and it's not them. But the truth is, it's you.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. Man, was today good. All right. So we got to get everyone to follow you, and whether they want to book you to speak, learn from you continuously, get involved with franchising with Everbowl. Like, tell us where everyone can follow you.
Yeah, I mean, I have the Jeff Fenster show with Entrepreneurial.com, so you can obviously go to Entrepreneurial.com and see it, or any of the platforms for podcasts. JeffFenster.com, at FensterJeff on Instagram. You can email me, either connect@jefffenster.com or jeff@everbowl.com. I'm a relationship guy, so I do my own DMs and stuff, so I would like to meet everybody. And if I can help anybody, I'm truly going to try my best to do it. And if I can add value to your community or your circle, please reach out. Let's build some good relationships, and let's keep dominating and winning the day.
For sure. I know everyone that listened in today will have gotten a ton of value, especially our entrepreneurs and leaders that listen to this show. Jeff was dropping knowledge all over the place. And I really appreciate you taking the time and pouring into our audience, because this was highly, highly valuable. So I really appreciate it, Jeff. Spartans, you know what to do. Share this episode far and wide. Remember that good and great are the enemies of possible. Lead like a Spartan today.